What's a thing that is dangerously close to collapse that you know about? The Florida citrus industry, specifically oranges. There is a fungus that is spreading and infecting groves across the state. Unfortunately, we have no way to kill the fungus. The only solution is to cut down all citrus trees within a certain radius of an infected tree. Many farmers are choosing to sell their farm rather than try to start all over. The young childcare industry. Increased regulation to make facilities safer, a very good thing, had the unintended consequence of increasing costs for owners. You now need more teachers who have training and certification, not to mention the patience and stamina to work with young kids all day. The pay is comparable to fast food without the benefits. Owners have to find a way to pay teachers enough to retain them while keeping costs down so parents can afford to send their kids. It's nearly impossible without an infusion of government investments. The Ogallala Aquifer. You know how Kansas and Nebraska are known for essentially being endless fields of wheat and corn? Well, they do that by drilling wells to one of the world's largest aquifers deep under the Midwest. There isn't enough consistent rainfall in those areas for all those crops, so well water makes up the difference. But we're draining it, and it can't be replenished. Once it's drained, it's Dust Bowl 2.0, and no more large-scale farming in the Midwest. Literally all infrastructure in North America, the majority of underground infrastructure, pipes, water lines, sewer systems, has been completely ignored in terms of maintenance and has been totally ignored in terms of budgeting for replacing the assets. There are towns that have upcoming bills of tens to hundreds of millions, not even mentioning larger cities, that have saved approximately 0% of the required amount by constantly pushing out the lifetime estimation of the assets. Lots and lots of bills are coming due shortly, if the engineering estimates are accurate, and very few towns have saved anything for this scenario. We're basically living in a world where no one wants to be the person to say that we need to save money for long-term planning. And instead, everyone hopes things don't fail while they are leading, and they can pass the buck. The Garrisenda, one of two remaining 12th century towers in Bologna, Italy. I saw them in April. It looks pretty ridiculous, to be honest. They have the area blocked off by some shipping containers because that tower is probably going to fall any day. It looks like there are some half-hearted restoration attempts happening, but I have no idea what their plan is. There's a waste product of burning coal called fly ash. We use it in concrete. It makes the concrete better and cheaper. Nobody is building new coal power plants, and old ones are shutting down. It's getting harder and harder to source the ash. If we have to source it from far away, like China, the transportation costs erase the cost savings. We can get the same concrete with just cement and added chemicals, but it's more expensive. In 10 years, we probably won't be using it at all. It's a really minor thing that will have far-reaching consequences. Architects and engineers will probably look at ways to reduce concrete in their buildings as the costs increase. It's not likely to impact residential, but big downtown architecture is sure to be affected. Without human intervention, your local energy grid is only about 6 to 24 hours away from complete collapse, depending on how prepared the utility company is with automatic backups. The electricity grid will likely fail first and within hours. Other energy sources like city heat or natural gas will take longer because those rely less on active human inputs. You remember in the Last of Us TV show how Nick Offerman is in a Home Depot. The power goes out, and he remarks, "That was fast." That bit was much more accurate than anyone not involved in utilities would ever care to know about. Lots of things according to r/collapse. Personally, I live in a city called Lowell, MA, and there's the Rourke Bridge, built 40 years ago, that was meant to be temporary. Honestly, it reminds me of those unsettling bridges you see over rivers in Siberia or some other place in Central Asia. It's loud and bumpy, and you can feel the whole thing sway because it gets 25,000 cars crossing it every day. Not only that, you can actually walk under it since there's a riverwalk pathway it connects to, and you can see rusted sections just rotting away. About 6 months ago, a truck crossed it, and a panel on the surface somehow seesawed up into the gas tank. The truck made it across, but not before losing probably 80 to 100 gallons of diesel onto the bridge and into the river below. The river had a marshy, swampy area near the bridge, and you could see the fuel slick, eddying, and collecting in that area. I can't imagine much survived underneath. I'm sure a lot of fish eggs and small aquatic animals died down there. The city, state, and feds have known this bridge needs replacing for decades, and they know about the rust and rot, but they continue to say that it will last for now. Don't they always say that, though? There is a plan to build a new one next to it, but it won't be done until 2028, which we all know means it'll probably drag on into 2029, 2030, etc. I honestly don't think it will last that long. Healthcare in the US. I'm not talking about paying for healthcare in the US. I think that's fixable. You can cut the cost by 30% by making it all covered by Medicare for all. I'm talking about actually having enough physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants to treat everyone. Burnout has gotten a lot worse in the US. Almost every physician I know is talking about retiring within 5 years, or at least cutting back dramatically. The big problems: one, not enough medical schools, residency programs to train physicians. My hospital is in need of just about all specialties. Pre-med programs remain a weed out for medical schools, which means we need more medical schools. We make up for the lack of them by importing physicians from other countries. We need more medical schools and to weed out a lot less potential graduates. Pre-med undergraduate courses include calculus, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, and organic chemistry. I'm not saying any of them need to be removed. Just make enough medical schools that the medical schools will take Bs in these courses, rather than requiring almost perfect GPAs for admissions. I can guarantee that almost no physician uses any of these courses in their day-to-day practice of medicine. If they did, it would be required in their continuing medical education, which it is not. 2. Too much paperwork. Too many hoops to jump through on a regular basis. Not just the 100+ hours of continuing education, the quarterly tests to keep our board certifications up to date, the every 2-year basic life support, extended life support classes we have to take. Now there is mandatory education for opioid abuse, child welfare, and God only knows what else. Also, every 2-year licensing by your state medical board, DEA certification, etc. 3. Too much competition in an area. This forces physicians to compete with each other, which burns us out faster. It also means more duplication of effort in an area. 4. Most physicians now work for health networks, big business. This means less leniency when we need something. For example, if you need to take a day off, you need to put it in the calendar 3 months in advance. You want to buy a stethoscope? It counts as part of your tech purchase for the year. Yes, a stethoscope, not an electric one, is considered tech, just like a phone or computer. 5. Patients have gotten a lot more demanding, and aggressively so. Everyone Googles their problems and thinks they have the most rare disease. No one wants to listen to their physician's advice and just give time to see if things get better on their own. If the physician doesn't say exactly what the patient wants to hear, the patient screams it from every website and review place, so everyone else thinks the physician is an idiot. You don't like what I say? Please go elsewhere. I don't have time for your issues, and the fact that you think you are the one in 10,000 20-year-olds who actually has a congenital cause of a heart attack at your age. BDW. I see number 5 on Reddit almost every day. I sometimes comment about it and get downvoted to oblivion. Now I just sigh and move on. I won't convince people that unnecessary testing is almost certainly not going to make them better, and more than likely cause more anxiety when a result comes back not exactly what they expected. P.S. Sorry for the rant. Just a burnt-out physician taking a couple of minutes off before getting back to work on a Sunday morning. Cut me a break. I've been working 14 days in a row now. Most weeks are not this bad, fortunately. The food chain. I'm still amazed no one is talking about the fact that insect biomass has declined by approximately 47% and abundance has declined by approximately 61.5% over the last 35 years. In some areas, it's measured a 75% decline in a single generation. This insect apocalypse is very serious. Don't just take my word for it. Indeed, most biologists agree that the world has entered its sixth mass extinction event, the first since the end of the Cretaceous period 66 million years ago, when more than 80% of all species, including the non-avian dinosaurs, perished. IT knowledge. There are several factors at work here. Colleges are mostly a few years behind trends, if not more. So a lot of recent grads are way behind from the start. Most colleges are now just shills for business licenses called degrees. You need this license to be allowed to have an entry job, and they know it and charge whatever the market can bear. Pearson VUE has seized a huge amount of this space, which just adds to the cost and tries to enforce certification tracks with government contract specs and all sorts of inroads. The cash cow of graduating college with six-figure jobs waiting for them is mostly gone. Junior roles have been outsourced overseas and replaced with people wearing multiple hats. There are very few middle roles, so the track of going from junior to senior has a huge gap that keeps getting wider. The senior roles are starting to age out. Many went into management, and some are retiring. Knowledge and experience are getting lost. Companies reliant on technology to survive are cutting technology costs as a cost center, because of the pressure of rising capitalism to always produce value year to year. Thus, they send more jobs overseas, and senior roles become too costly to maintain. We are incurring a lot of debt in aging infrastructure, and IT is no different. There are systems operating high-cost operations in factories, transportation, and utilities that haven't been upgraded in decades, and some of the people who knew how it all worked are dying off. Eventually, there won't be enough senior roles to teach younger people anything, and there will be a cascading series of knowledge gaps in current infrastructure, leading to huge failures. People say that kids today know computers, but they really don't. Most only know GUI and how to operate an iPad, not what makes the iPad work under the hood or how the internet works. The UK criminal justice system. Edit for any non-Brits passing through. The new government has had to announce it's releasing prisoners early because there's no space for incoming suspects on remand and new convicts. The last government shut down about half the courts, and the remaining ones are falling apart and understaffed. There aren't enough judges, resulting in a 2-year backlog of serious cases. The junior end of the profession is so poorly paid, they've been on strike repeatedly. And let's not forget the police have basically stopped investigating shoplifting and other smaller crimes. This comes after 14 years of the Law and Order Party being in power. Thank goodness, the former chief prosecutor is now prime minister, so there may be hope for fixing it. The Amazon. To some degree, it generates its own weather patterns, with the vast amounts of water evaporated into the atmosphere from leaves. Deforestation is putting it close to a tipping point where it can no longer maintain those patterns. Once reached, the feedback loop is likely irreversible. The education system. We have maybe 10 more years before a whole section of teachers retires, and then we're absolutely screwed. 50% of teachers quit within the first 5 years, and that statistic is much higher for SPED teachers. We aren't going to have anyone to work in the schools. Get ready for your kids to be taught by an online program with a person who babysits 50 kids at one time and has no training. It's going to get bad fast, even faster in bad union states. And if you have a kid with a lot of support needs, truly, I don't know what they'll do. I work with that population, and we currently are missing 2 teachers and 3 others are on emergency permits. It's a huge problem and keeps getting worse because the pay is so bad that no one wants to work with these students. I went to the hospital on Friday from a bite from a student, truly a manifestation of his disability, who desperately needs a 2-1, but the district is making it impossible. I barely get to teach because I'm putting out fires all day. A lot of subscription services, not just streaming services, but also big corporate software subscriptions, are facing significant challenges. I work in tech, and there's a very real panic going on at many of these companies because they built their entire network and service at a loss, funneled hundreds of thousands of investor dollars into a product with the idea that they would raise the price later and recoup their losses after gaining a foothold. However, the cost of running a live service program is much higher than just selling a license and letting people install the program and use it locally. You need servers, virtual machines, and the person-hours difference between occasional software updates and a live service. So not only do they need to pay back the initial losses, but they also need to make enough to cover the ongoing costs of running the service. They expand as far as possible, reach every potential customer, and then raise prices once they have a dedicated user base. But often, it's not enough. There may not be enough customers to cover their costs or pay back their loans, and by the time they realize this, raising prices might push some customers away. Other companies might be in the lose money to get customers phase, offering similar services at lower prices. A lot of companies jumped on the software as a service train, inspired by the success of Microsoft and Adobe. However, those companies already had substantial financial resources to absorb losses. Smaller companies don't have that luxury, and many are struggling to replicate the success, slowly hemorrhaging resources in the process. The NY taxicab and livery insurance system is dangerously close to collapse. Recent reports highlight a looming crisis in this sector due to significant financial losses suffered by major insurers. Bloomberg, the largest insurer for NYC's taxis and rideshares, is facing severe financial strain, risking a potential meltdown. The insurer's substantial losses are creating instability in the market, which could affect the availability and affordability of insurance for these services. This could lead to increased costs for drivers and potentially disrupt service availability in the city. Insurance Insider report: the second and third largest insurers in this market also reported massive losses, totaling $217 million and $8 million respectively in the second quarter. These losses further destabilize the market, highlighting the systemic risk and the potential for widespread impact on the livery and rideshare sectors. The combination of these financial issues could lead to a severe contraction in insurance coverage, impacting thousands of drivers and potentially causing significant disruptions in urban transportation. The Los Angeles court reporter system, along with various county services like the health department and several county IT systems, is facing a critical issue. Court reporters. After many court reporters went home in 2020, a significant number never returned. There's a high demand for court reporters, with starting salaries now at $100 a year plus signing bonuses. Despite this, the shortage persists because it's challenging to hire enough qualified individuals. Court reporters are a crucial part of the justice system in Los Angeles. Many courts do not accept electronic recordings as accurate portrayals of court proceedings. While some probate and misdemeanor courts allow electronic recordings, most other courts require a court reporter. Without a properly created court transcript, appeals cannot be filed. If no transcript is available, cases cannot be delayed indefinitely, leading to serious constitutional violations due to the lack of an appeal process. The permafrost. Locked within the permafrost is a significant amount of methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. If we experience further permafrost melting and the subsequent release of this methane, it could trigger a runaway effect. We're already observing the impacts, with entire villages in Alaska and Russia being destroyed due to the permafrost melting underneath them. Our satellite systems, thanks to the Kessler effect. The Kessler effect suggests that when the amount of space debris in low Earth orbit reaches a critical level, it will trigger a cascade effect where debris continually collides and breaks apart, increasing the amount of debris exponentially. Some believe this effect was already set in motion when two satellites collided in 2009, creating hundreds of thousands of pieces of debris. Additionally, collisions resulting in space debris are becoming more frequent. The implications are significant. If this debris multiplication continues unchecked, it could severely hinder future space exploration and potentially disrupt or eliminate satellite use. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Behind the Veil.